Orhan Pamuk is here. He is Turkey's best-selling writer. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2006. His novels have been translated into more than 50 languages. His new book is called The Museum of Innocence. It is set in his native city of Istanbul, which he has written about time and time again. I am pleased to have Orhan Pamuk back at this table. Welcome.
Good night.
That's a wonderful thing to say about that Nobel Prize.
Yeah, I was very happy about it. And then they were really nice to me at Stockholm too, that I felt like the whole Swedish Nobel Committee felt as if good uncles patting me and saying sweet things for my work. I was so happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, Istanbul is not only the place that you came from, but it is a character in your life.
All my life is spent in Istanbul. I am of course, obviously a writer of Istanbul, but then I'm not deliberately so. Since I've been asked this so many times, Istanbul is not in my agenda. I write about humanity, but I came across humanity in Istanbul. So that's what I know about humanity. Then indirectly, I, of course, write about Istanbul. But then human character is more important than the city. That I also think about. That I'm a novelist, as much as Dostoevsky wrote about St. Petersburg, or Joyce was busy with Dublin. Right. I'm also busy with Istanbul, but then one is in the end busy with human lives. Human lives make cities live. Mm-hmm. And
are the stories the same, even though the venue is different, about human life?
They change. And in fact, Museum of Innocence, it may be a good example. This is another love story.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, but it's different. It is, say, Garcia Marquez wrote Love in the Times of Cholera. This is love in a repressed society, I would say, in that I argue always that human heart is the same everywhere. So that's why we writers, when we write, I know that I will be, if I write it well, of course, that addressing a reader in Korea or in Patagonia or in Vietnam, where I have readers.
Right.
But there is the universal, eternal side of the human heart, but then there is the given history, culture, weight of history, repression, liberty, human, and they are different. Cultures are different. This is a love story, Museum of Innocence, but it is a love story in a culture where men and women do not come together so easily, that negotiation of love is done through a more different language. Let's compare with, say, in America, where there are parties, men and women come together, and it's legitimate. And then people also are happy to see couples are going to movies before marriage, whatever. Where this is a culture in 1970s, sex outside of marriage is a taboo, is a very troubled thing. Sex before marriage, and also in relation to that, virginity is a taboo. So this is love in that society. And I try to point out that in such a climate, although human heart is the same every place, refinement or communication through is communication between lovers or negotiation of the love, as we all do actually, is done through silences, raising of eyebrows, a whole set of gestures and things where and the culture also approves, and it's a refined culture. But on the other hand, beneath it, there is a taboo. There is a lack of communication of the lovers. There is a frustration of not making, an angry frustration of not making love. And into that culture, this is mid-1970, the news of 1960s sex revolution in West, or that sexual freedom or whatever is reaching. So that is, we follow that clash in the story.
Tell me about the three characters in Museum of Innocence.
Kemal is an upper-class rich boy, heir to a rich business family, and lives in Nişantaşı, which is the neighborhood I spent all my life in. And I wrote about that. He comes from a richer family than my family. My family is incomparable. But he is also is not a very intellectual person. Then he is about to get married to a very suitable girl.
He may not be an intellectual person, but he reads Orhan Pamuk.
Yes, yeah, he meets me at the end of the book. I appear in the book.
Yes. Go ahead.
Then he is going to live the life that is expected of him. He finds a suitable girl. In fact, it looks, at the beginning of my novel, it reads like a pink Barbara Cartland novel. Everything is fine. He's going to marry.
We know the plot, we know the story, we know everything.
I always tell my friends, just don't pay attention to the first 50 pages, then it will be a different novel. Then he, surprisingly, makes love with and falls in love with his twice removed cousin, a distant relative of sorts, Füsun, who comes from the poor branch of the family. So the whole gender and class enters there.
And she's 18 and he's 30.
She's 18 and he's 30, and this is not too much at that time in Turkey. That's normal.
Right.
You would have said that's normal. That's not the point. The point is class. Difference and sex or virginity or sex before marriage. He, as an honorable man, this was the culture of 70s, but still the culture, we may talk about that, that feels obliged. Now he's responsible for the fate of this girl because she lost her virginity. Or, more so, she also feels obliged, now you have to marry. These are issues of highly repressive, in a society, highly repressed sexually, especially the woman. So the novel also tried, of course, I tried to explore, poor novel, I don't know what it does, I tried to explore the issue of pretensions of westernization, occidentalization of upper classes, and the weight of history, culture, whatever we believe in. And these are damning issues. The story is, the drama is about that. Another drama, of course, is that Kemal, my character, who in some aspects I feel affinity to, is in fact heavily in love. But yes, this novel, besides being a sort of a picture of Turkish society between 1974 to end of the last century, is a picture of a man who is infatuated by love. At one point in the story, my character realizes that his love pain of not seeing her enough, and I think this is the gravest of all love pains. You know, there are all many sides to love pain. That if he has an object, something, a relic, a sign, a photo, or even a lighter or a salt shaker that reminds him of their best times, then his love pain decreases. So he begins to collect objects that remind him of their best times, and this takes some 8 years, and in the end he has a collection. He converts this, manages to exhibit this collection in a museum, and the book we're reading is sort of an annotated catalogue of that museum. But I don't want this to scare the readers. Then you can read this novel as a traditional novel too. But the story is told through objects which remind, in a Proustian fashion, the past. It's a sort of a continuation of the idea, Madeleine idea of that Proust. We taste something, our senses, our tentacles are open, our doors of perception are open, and then the whole past comes back. Let us imagine, my novel suggests, that a whole museum of objects that give us the past. If you read the novel, then you will one by identify the objects which I hope to exhibit in the museum too.
Do you have a Museum of Innocence?
I am doing a Museum of Innocence. In architecturally, it's a real thing, but it doesn't legitimize the book. You say there may be readers of the book in end of the say in Korea or in America or in Turkey who do not know that there will be such a museum. You can enjoy the novel as such. It is a venturous thing to do that. I'm doing it. I'm hoping to finish it in 1 or 2 years. Then you may read the book. There, at the end of the book, there is a ticket. Then you can also visit the book. But I don't want the museum to overshadow the novel.
Back to you personally for a second. How do you divide your time between New York and Istanbul?
Every year I teach, every fall semester, I teach at Columbia University, comparative literature, humanities, whatever. And then that means 4 months in New York. I also spend 5 or 6 months in Istanbul.
That's 9.
Then 3 months. For example, I was in Kofavskari University at Venice last. So I go to another university, or I go to a place where I write.
What do you teach?
I teach, in fact, about the subjects that I want to write books on, that I wanted to be a painter in my life. And at Columbia University, for the last 2 years, I was teaching a course with my friend called Pictures and Words about history of, sort of a survey of history of relationship between painting and literature.
What a great course.
Yes,
it's a great course.
Thank you. That we survey all the major texts, then some literature, and then they were called sister arts, especially poetry and painting, because they give rise to similar sentiments.
Now, has painting more influenced literature, or literature more influenced painting?
I think they are intertwined. Painting taught literature to describe. I think that
painting taught literature to describe.
If you know how to see things, you know how to pick up details and make an integral part of the story. Let's remember that art of the novel, as we know today, is developed not earlier than mid-19th century, although Don Quixote was written at the end of 16th century. Novels, as we know today, were developed by Stendhal, Balzac, Zola, who were, all of which three, if we leave aside Dickens in England, were heavily interested in painting, wrote about the painters of their time, wrote books even, were friendly with painters, and Impressionism was being about to be developed some 30, 20 years later. And they have learned, and so many scholars argue, that to describe things, to see things, not only that, to see things as emblems of human drama, human status, class, gender, also to see things as defining a person's taste and refinement. This is Flaubert. This is all. Flaubert was also heavily interested in painting. Painting prepared grounds for French, at least for French realistic novel, and from there on it was global novel. I think the novel we know today was developed by French and British in mid-19th century, and there was a lot of painting influence, and the writers who did that heavily influenced by painters.
Is one novel recognized as the first?
I think Stendhal, Balzac were the novelists, but I cannot pick up, say...
This book was the first novel.
For me, the greatest novel is Anna Karenina.
Why? Anna Karenina?
I think this is not my personal opinion. It's the greatest novel. It is just, say to yourself, why do you want to read it again? You just want to read again. This fall, I gave Norton lectures at Harvard University, and in these lectures you just choose a subject, and I choose the art of the novel, and more than half of my examples are based on Anna Karenina. Why? It just gives you the feeling that yes, life is like that. When I was writing this book, of course, a sort of a Hemingway kind of competitiveness I had was with Anna Karenina, that I think that every novel in the end should address this basic idea, feeling, sentiment. What is life like? Literary novels should address that. When we finish a novel, put it by the side, we say, is life like that? If we think, well, I think life is like that, or I did not notice life is like that, I think novels should address our basic sense of what are the values. Is it friendship? Is it history? Is it culture? Is it community? Is it ethical commitment to an idea? Or it's just happiness? What is happiness? I think old-fashioned novels did that. I think we should continue doing that. This novel also aspires to do those things.
Do you believe that novels will tell you more about a culture than history will tell you about a culture?
I believe novels teach us details of a culture. Some novels based on more fantasy and imagination, you cannot learn more about, you cannot have realistic information about a culture. But some novels, say Flaubert gives in Madame Bovary or education, sentimental education, so much about the French society of mid-19th century. Novels give us the period, but some novels do not choose to do that. Say genre novels, science fiction novels, detective novels, some of these romances, they don't teach, or most of historical novels do not teach us about history, but give us something about the period they are written. I think novels, in the end, are based on human experience. They convey that experience, and evaluation of that experience should be in the novel. Novels also are democratic forms, in the sense that you don't have to be an intellectual to enjoy a novel, although some novels...
Because it's a story.
It's a story, no. Also, along with being a story, that they are based on little daily life observations. What do we see in a novel? Someone is drinking tea, I'm looking at my watch, the other guy is opening a light, and we see something from the window.
And a novelist has a gift that others don't, to see those things and understand the context and significance of what is daily and ordinary.
And a novelist should have, yes, in that line, two talents: to see those things in such a way that when he writes, or he or she writes about them, you say, yes, that's how a coffee feels. That's how when you see the fresh morning breeze, that's how it feels. The second thing pulls together all these little humane intersections with life, so to speak, with life, light, words, sounds, colors, in such a big organization that when you finish that organization, also embedded in a story, you have a sense of life. You say, well, that's my understanding of life too. Proust, so many novelists, in fact, compared novels to cathedrals. That from these little observations, you make a cathedral that suggests something deeper. That is the center of the novel, the meaning of the novel, what the novel implies. The joyful, attractive thing about writing novels is that you don't have to be a professor, scholar, anything. You just pay attention to little details of human life. Go and then compose these details in such a way, with identifying with the heroes, that you give such a deep understanding of life that can compete with philosophy or religion.
What skills do you have now that you didn't have 10 years ago, other than you have more experiences of living?
Good. When I was writing my first novels, when I was 23, I was going to be a painter, and I stopped painting, and I said to my family, in an upper middle class family in Istanbul, I'm going to be a novelist. And they said, what? Who's going to read your novels? You don't know anything about life. Coming to your question, that they were implying, my family and my friends, that novels are about human experience. Now, when I finished this novel, I also said, after 35 years, at that time I said, well, no, novels are about literature, about Kafka, Beckett. You have to be experimental. It's not, I don't need, Kafka didn't leave anything. He was just working in an insurance office. Novels should not be full of life. Now, 35 years later, I think that now I agree that perhaps because I have life experience, that novels should be full of a sense of life. But in order to be able to say it, you have to be over 55 like me.
You write in what language?
I write, of course, in Turkish.
Right. Handwrite it?
Yes, I handwrite in Turkish. Then
you don't write from a computer?
No.
You don't?
I was, when the computers and all that started, it was too late for me. And also, I write slowly, and it's okay. I'm happy. I don't want to see a computer in front of me all day.
Why does it take 8 years?
Well, writing of it was five years. I'm a slow writer.
Writing was 5 years?
Yes.
This book has, what, 500 plus pages?
Yeah. I'm a slow writer. I'm happy about it.
Happy about it?
Yes.
Meaning you prefer it that way?
Yes. Look, in the end, this is my 8th novel. I sometimes ask myself, the greatest novelists I admire, say Dostoevsky, Faulkner, Nabokov. How many novels did I read from these guys? 10, 15, not 20.
Yeah.
So if I write 10, 15 novels in my life, that's okay. I don't want to go more than that. Also, my novels are long. I write a lot and edit out a lot. And I like taking my time. I don't want to rush.
Do you want to get to the end and then go back, or do you?
Yes, I sometimes write the ending, sometimes write the middle chapters. I chapter a novel, then jump around. When I'm stuck in I don't have writer's block. When I'm stuck in a chapter, I skip to another chapter and continue that way.
What causes writer's block?
I think an anxiety, too much anxiety about something. Another thing, that not knowing what will happen in the next chapter or in the story. Also, lack of self-confidence, perhaps.
But I mean, have you felt it seriously?
Sometimes, but not.
You go to a next chapter.
Yes, I have learned ways to bypass it. Just for me, writer's block is about not knowing what to do in the next chapter. But if there is a chapter that you want to write a lot, just skip to it and continue. Then you will return back.
Some people are very good at dialogue. Some people are very good at creating characters. Some people are very good in narrative, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you good at all of them, or how would you rank them in terms of your own core competence?
I like writing a good dialogue, but writing too much, I sometimes seems to me betraying. That novels should not be too based on too much dialogue. That is a play. I like seeing the human sentiment, emotions with the objects that surround that person. I want to give, with one sentence, with one brush, movement of a brush, both the emotion and the object enveloped in one sentence. That's my aspiration. I argue that the objects that surround us in a novel should also represent our emotions. That when we are sad, we look out of the window, we should see a bit of a melancholic cloudy sky. There should be a correspondence with the objects that surround the character and the drama. And the good writer sees the object that fits the emotion of the character.
You still paint?
I quit painting for 35 years. I began painting in the last 2 years again.
Tell me what happened.
I'm just I was raised to be a painter between the ages of 7 and 22.
Raised by your parents?
By my family, or I would say that I just developed it by my own.
Right.
But I come from a family of civil engineers. My grandfather was a civil engineer. My father and uncles were. And then they all said, well, you can be a painter, but why don't you go to School of Architecture, where your grandfather and uncles went to study
so you went to architecture school, right.
But then dropped with the intention of being a painter and architect like Le Corbusier.
Right.
But then suddenly I stopped all of this, dropped out of architectural school and stopped painting and began writing novels. 35 years I continued like that. In fact, how it felt when I painted, I wrote My Name is Red, one of my novels early,
exactly, right.
to remember all the joys of painting. Then I continued, but in the last 2 years, again, I picked up brush and pen.
So why did you pick it up after 35 years?
No, in fact, I was in front of a stationery. I didn't have, so I just walked in and bought all the colors. All in my childhood, all my aunts, they loved me and used to bring me colors and paintings, in my birthdays, in all occasions. So just like that, I felt like a child. I bought and began doing. But of course, I am an amateur. But it is a good way of thinking about these issues of relationship between painting and literature, painting and seeing, narrating a story through objects. I am, I think, a visual writer. That say Tolstoy and Nabokov are visual writers. They give a sense of the drama we enjoy through pictures, while Dostoevsky gives a lot of drama, but then we read it's intense, it affects us, but we don't remember what was in that room where Dmitri and Alyosha spoke. While you enter a Tolstoy room, then you also remember the objects.
You remember the room.
You remember the color of the room, or some sensation, or something from the room. I think I'm that kind of...
Whether it's dark or light, or whether it's...
Yes, or some sense of a breeze comes in. Those visual authors see the world in a more lighter way. And when he was teaching Russian literature at Cornell, I think Nabokov used to give this example. He would give, this is Chekhov, this is Dostoevsky, this is Turgenev, and he would open the blinds of the room. Light would pour on, and this is Tolstoy, he would say.
That's great.
Yes.
How much of this novel is autobiographical?
Very tough question that I've been asked in Turkey. Of course, when the book was published, it's a love story, a man's infatuation with love, his love pains, and of course all the women readers I have met in Turkey with a smile, Mr. Pamuk, are you Kemal? They asked.
Yes, exactly.
And then, of course, and I thought this day, I've been asked this so many times. All authors, of course, all their lives have been asked, are you your character? Are you your character? But
and the answer is always the same. A part of me is in every character I've ever created.
Yes, but then since this was asked so much, I thought about this, and in fact, I argued that the nature of the novel, this art, is such that even if I say, well, it's not me, it's a fictional character, deeply in my heart, I want the reader to believe that it's me, because writing novels is seducing the reader in such a way that he or she, the reader, is constantly asking himself, herself, did he live this detail? Is this autobiographical? Or is he or she, the writer, is so creative that he invented it?
So the reader would have that dialogue.
This is the joy of
that dialogue with themselves.
Yes, this is the. I
they
think,
live this, or are they a genius who can create it as if they lived it?
Yes. Look, when we read novels, we all do that. Is this autobiographical? Say a political novel, a business novel, anything. A slice of life is introduced, and we ask ourselves: is this fantasy? Or is reality like this? And in fact, that's why we buy and read. We don't want a journalistic thing. We want a creative writer's take on reality. That's why we read novels. And we also trust the writer because he chooses the best parts of reality to represent. We said cathedral, imply what it's all about. So we always ask, and then there is no answer to that. Even if I say, Nabokov said, oh, my books are fantasies, they're fairy tales, then there is so much reality in them, and then we cannot make a distinction. Even the writer says, no, I'm not Kemal, I never fell in love like that, it's embarrassing, which is true. But I don't want the reader to acknowledge this as true.
It's true that you never fell in love like this?
I fell in love, but not as much as this. I was not that much.
But then are you jealous of him because you never fell in love that much?
No.
I mean, wouldn't it be good to fall in love that much? Isn't that what even though it had negative consequences for him or directed his life?
I identify with my character because love made him open to pay attention to his beloved.
Exactly.
I would like to be like him, paying so much attention to other human beings. Deeply in this novel, deep below, is my identification with the character in two ways. One is his infatuation with his beloved, Füsun, the girl, is so deep that he pays attention to her everything. I think novels are paying attention to human beings first, their gestures, their silence, the way she smokes a cigarette, the way she turns off her cigarette, the way she gets angry, the way she says this or that. That is very humane. And that is what is writing novels about, not only to other human beings, also nature, since this I identify with my character. The other thing is more political, perhaps, is this, that my character, Kemal, who comes from from Nişantaşı, the westernized neighborhoods of Istanbul.
Very secular.
Yeah, very secular, is more or less, although much richer guy, is given a happy life in a poor country of Turkey's 1970s, but this or that happens in his life, and he is out of that community life that I was giving. Also, I could have been an architect or whatever, and then would have led a communitarian middle-class bourgeois life in Istanbul. This or that happened. I did not fall in love with Füsun. I fell in love with writing novels, and that's why
Okay, but that's a really interesting question for me. If you have a passion for something, to write, to paint, to perform, to whatever, does that restrict, because it's self-directed, your capacity to have the kind of feelings that Kemal has?
I agree. Yes, I think a very good question.
So you can't love as well as somebody who didn't have the same passion for work that you have.
Yes, that in the end, I would say, well, this love is too much. I'm not writing for 6 months. Let me overcome it. I would do that.
I know you would.
I'm that kind of person.
You know that for a fact?
Yes, I can say that.
Because you are the driving force in your life
is this, yes.
And you'll let nothing get in the way of it.
Things get in the way, but after a while, I compose myself. In that sense, I'm not Kemal.
You slap yourself and
yes,
say,
I do that.
Wake up. You know. Now, is part of that because you think that you, for whatever combination of reasons, has a gift? We're destined and born. I mean,
yeah, I
you
don't
won a
think
Nobel Prize.
I don't think in that lines. In the end, maybe people will think that I'm destined and born to write many books.
Yeah.
But in the end, I think
10 is enough. I mean, 12, 15.
But more important is that I am more happier when I'm doing this, when I'm writing a novel. Yes, love makes us happy, this and that.
Right.
Yeah, in the end, it is more a feeling of security and solidarity and enjoyment of sex for me. While
go ahead. No, I'm interested.
I said it, that in the end, love is a feeling of security, enjoyment of life, and sex, more or less. While this is, novels is a deeper thing, almost a religion for me. When I reach inside a novel and writing and happy with it, it is the greatest happiness for me. And I think there are so many people out there who sense it. That's why they read your novels,
because they know you have that kind of
you have that kind of motivation,
and drive.
It has in the end you make a cathedral, and its center suggests such. And it's made of such little things, as you know, opening, answering a phone, and opening a door, and saying something silly. Then with these details, you make such a big construction, which suggests things, secular things that only religion can imply.
Yeah. The ultimate aphrodisiac for you.
Yes. Yes.
Henry Kissinger famously once said that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. The ultimate aphrodisiac for you is here. It is.
Yes, I like that. Of course, once you have it, you also want to be happy in life.
And also, it is my belief. You know, if in fact you are doing something along levels of excellence, and there is a response, in your case, buying this book, then it empowers you as a human being. It makes you more real, more open, more...
Also more responsible. That I feel now obliged that I write my books even more carefully. that I have so many readers, that I have to be very careful, that I should not steal their time, I cannot be messy on this or that, I have to be very careful, revising and revising and revising. That's how I strongly feel, and I don't want to be embarrassed.
And the idea that you have disappointed your readers would be a terrible pain.
Yes. In fact, it will be more painful by being disappointed by a critic than I know that those pages are bad or I'm not happy about it. I won't let that happen.
Can you imagine doing anything else now?
No, I'm so happy with what I have done. I'm enjoying teaching at Columbia, where I'm learning things, and for me the happiness is continue to live as I did.
Did the Nobel Prize change anything?
It made me a busier man, a more responsible man, but I did not get it in late life. I get it early, so it's not a retirement pension for me.
Yes, exactly.
It made me even more ambitious.
Really?
Yes.
How so?
I just want to write all these 5 novels I had in mind, and I want to write them well, that kind of thing.
Now, how many have you written? If you had 5 novels in your...
I had 8. I wrote 8 novels.
Right.
Museum of Innocence is my 8th novel.
Right.
But I have, I'm planning for another 5 novels. I hope
another
I can.
5. And you know the essential subject matter.
Yes.
Essential.
Yes, essential subject. I definitely know.
Yeah. You have a love of books too.
Yes.
You know, I mean, you collect, you know.
But I'm not a collector. I have 16,000 books in Istanbul.
Well, that's a collector to me. You don't collect first editions or something like that?
Yeah, no, not that kind of thing. In fact, a collector of books is a person who never reads that books. Thank God I'm reading them. Yeah. I buy books essentially because in my youth there were no libraries in Istanbul, but I wanted to educate myself. I bought a lot of books. I still buy books and send them back to Istanbul, thinking that Turkey, Istanbul, is my country because I'm still sending my books there.
All right, let's talk about Turkey today. As you know, I just interviewed the Prime Minister of Turkey, and I actually spoke to you about it, and I want to know whether you believe this or not. Roll tape.
There is the Islamic world of 1.5 billion people, and Turkey, between that world and the Western world, could be an important bridge as a democratic, secular, social state respecting the rule of law. And Turkey could serve as a very important bridge. And Turkey is perhaps the country that is best placed to do that.
Is he right?
He may be right, but then he's a diplomat, he's a politician. My point is that sometimes they said, Mr. Pamuk, I'm not aspiring to that role. Since they ask me this kind of question, Mr. Pamuk, are your works a bridge between East and West? No. That is his job. Can Turkey be like that?
His job is to make the case for Turkey to be that bridge.
Yes. Then he also, just as he argues to say in America and Europe, I can be a good bridge for you, he also argues to say Iran, wherever in Middle East, I can be a good bridge for you to go to make peace with America or this or that. I think if it works, it's work. Whether it's working or not, that is also problematical.
What is the essential conflict in Turkey?
There are 2 conflicts. One is now the conflict between Kurdish people, Kurds who are demanding more cultural, language, whatever rights, and then they're escalating to political rights, and the
central government has a fear of that.
Who has a fear of that and who doesn't know, in fact, how to deal with it in a more liberal, soft way. That is also the problem is here, central traditional government's hawkish attitude rather than not developing a soft liberal attitude. That's one problem in Turkey.
Conflict,
unfortunately, will be continue to be problem if they don't know how to approach it in a soft way. And the other is, of course, the so-called fight between secularists and so-called Islamists. But this is a fight that's been going on in Turkey for the last 200 years. It's changing faces, words, and this started as Turkey began to develop its Occidentalization, Westernization project. This problem started. Yes.
Is it more, go back to the time of Ataturk, is it more secular today or less secular today?
Now, it depends on your understanding of secularism. I think that Turkey is definitely a secular country. The fact that there is a party who is in power, with the leaders of that party used to call themselves Islamists 10 years ago, do not change the picture much. That Kemal Atatürk's secularism project worked. What doesn't work is democracy, human rights, free speech. These are the problem.
Why doesn't it work?
Well, partly it is.
Well, you felt the burden of it.
Yes,
you felt the sharp edge of that.
Partly, I really think that it's not because of the political agenda. It's that the ruling elite, some parts of the army, bureaucracy, is very conservative and very, I would say, authoritarian.
But fearful of what?
Fearful of, unfortunately, democracy. In the elections.
I mean, what do they fear democracy will do? Will turn it into a theocracy or something?
No, but they say so. But I don't think they
don't really fear that. They just use that.
Yes,
say that the Islamists are coming. We got to stop them.
Yes, that's the pretext. I think. Unfortunately, some of it is that Turkish bureaucracy. Some parts of the army have some privileges. They don't want to lose it. They are also
it's always about that, isn't it?
Yeah, they are also upset about the. Negotiating with European Union, because the consequences of which they may lose some of their privileges.
In order to be acceptable to the European Union, certain changes will have to be made, suggesting you've met the standards for admission.
Yes. And these are things that the old establishment, some parts of the army, bureaucracy, legal bureaucracy, are resisting. In the end, culturally, I feel close to them because they are more, quote, westernized.
Right.
But they're troubled by their authoritarianism, by intolerance, by not addressing the free speech, by not paying respects to, in fact, people of Turkey's votes. Another problem of eternal problem of Turkey is that secularists, and most of them are nice people, good people, do not have much respect for democracy, people's votes, human rights.
Is there a political novel in you?
There is a desire to do it, but I'm holding myself. I already wrote Snow.
Right, exactly.
I don't want to be a controversial writer. I want to write what I planned in these 5 novels.
Also by Orhan Pamuk, Other Colors, it's Istanbul, Snow, My Name is Red, The White Castle, The Black Book, The New Life. This book, The Museum of Innocence. I thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
Great to see you.